You know, there's so much to talk about in regards to Canada's housing crisis, with some markets experiencing a serious shortage of housing. Rising inflation has increased interest rates as well. Many Canadians, including young married couples, are finding it even more difficult to afford a home today. Now, to talk about this in more detail and the housing market here in southwestern Alberta is Jeff Reimer. He's been a Lethbridge realtor for 30 years with Royal LePage. Jeff, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Nice to be with you, Al. Nice to chat with you.
You as well, Jeff. Now, how have rising mortgage rates really been impacting many of your clients?
Well, it's certainly affecting how much they can qualify for and making people be a lot more budget concerned and how much they're going to spend and, thinking twice about going higher and, trying to stay lower in their price budget to keep the costs down monthly for sure.
Now, Canada is in a bit of a housing crisis right now, Jeff. We've seen it all across the country here. We don't have enough houses available for many people, which raises prices. You know, it's supply and demand. Interest rates are going up as well, making things less affordable. Some say the government should make more land available for developers. Others say maybe we should look at immigration, what's happening there. What kinds of solutions are you hearing from those in the real estate sector?
Yeah, I mean, I don't discuss that at a deep level too much in my job because I'm more on the front lines. But, certainly, I mean, we need immigrants. I mean, this country always has had a lot of amazing immigrants. And the challenge is obviously finding the proper housing, but it's partly complicated by more urbanization, I think. People are less interested in going to the rural areas. As kind of a general trend. But I mean, we've got lots of land here on the prairies. So for us, I mean, it's always a matter of where you want to be and if you're going to want to be closer to the bigger centers. But there's lots of great spots available in towns in and around southern Alberta for sure.
It's funny, my parents themselves were immigrants when they came over from Europe. I'm a first generation Canadian, and my father went to Vancouver first, and he says, way too much rain. He couldn't handle Vancouver. Went to Regina, Saskatchewan. He says, it was way too cold, and then way too hot. So that's when he settled on Calgary, and he came to Alberta. So Jeff, what is the housing supply like right now in southern Alberta? How many listings are there right now compared to, let's say, a year ago?
Yeah, there's certainly less this year. I'd say residential, various types, probably about 100 less. I think there's about 460 or so, roughly residential this year. Now, it's a little bit tough stat to be exact on because it depends what genres you include, but I don't think that includes manufactured home parks. But yeah, right around 466, including condominiums and detached houses. And last year, yeah, it would have been about 100 more, give or take. So it's certainly less selection right now.
Are manufactured homes becoming a little more popular?
People that don't want mortgages and when interest rates go higher tend to lean to consider those more. You do have the monthly pad rent, which is like having a chunk of a mortgage in itself. If you pay $600 a month, I mean, that could lend you around, or you could borrow about 100,000 or whatever based on that monthly cost. But yeah, I think people do try to be especially older and senior populations, they dislike mortgages, and when rates go higher, even more so. So they tend to take their cash, even if they have a big monthly pad fee. They still like to be mortgage free, and so when interest rates go higher, manufactured home demand generally in Lethbridge area and southern Alberta goes up.
And I think they've come a long way since the early days back in the 70s and 80s,
way much
right?
more.
They've come a long way.
Oh yeah, way much more insulation, better build, more versatile floor plans, more choices for sure. That's come a long way.
Now, what's the biggest complaint you hear from those hunting for a home right now when it comes to things that are making it a real challenge for them to purchase outside of higher interest rates? I know for myself, I just renewed. I went from 2.79 4-year closed to a 5.09. But you know what? That's a huge hit, but that's not bad because right now, that was like 3 weeks ago. Now it's 6.75.
Yeah. Yeah, you can probably get closer to 6 if you shop around a bit. But yeah, definitely it's making it tougher on buyers for selection, and they feel more rushed in their decision making. So rather than looking at a few choices and taking the time, and they feel rushed in a decision, especially if you happen to be in a multiple offer situation. So in some price points, especially the lower ones, it's still common to potentially be in a multiple offer situation, and then you feel rushed on your decisions, and you don't always make the perfect choice every time. And terms of dates and in conditions, and you feel pressured to do that. So, uh, not finding as much selection as some folks might like, especially in the lower price points, and then the challenges of potentially multiple offer situations. Sometimes you might try once or twice and not get the house you want. So it's very frustrating.
Do you find with multiple offers as well, sometimes people want to come in with a clean offer so it's not subject to
Mhm.
financing and home inspection, so they have a better shot at getting the home?
Yeah, that's sometimes considered, and you have to be real careful with that because, generally I'm going to recommend a home inspection and subject to financing, even if it's just a small amount, to be safe. But yeah, for sure, that's always an enticement to a seller to take something that's cleaner, and that's a challenge with folks because banks right now aren't super quick, so a lot of them are wanting at least 2 weeks for a condition of finance, and in the past that would have been just longer than necessary, but now it's kind of very common to have a couple of weeks for mortgage condition.
So, Jeff, what's the average home price right now in Lethbridge?
Um, For a detached, it's around 370, 375, I think. It fluctuates a little bit here month over month, right? So it's hard to be exact, but right now it's around that 370 for a detached home. Of course, if you include condominiums and manufactured homes, that's going to lower that average. Um, but yeah, it's about 370, which hasn't changed a ton um, over last year, but in different price points and categories, it has changed quite a bit. So you're going to buy a condominium, let's say, or a half duplex, those would have raised up from last year. Whereas if you're buying a $600,000, $650,000 house, there's more selection in that price point, and that may not have gone up and may have even have inched down a bit.
So, what prices are really selling the fastest right now? Is it a lot of starter homes that maybe empty nesters want to move into and young couples maybe getting their first mortgage, their first home?
Absolutely that, and of course our student population in Lethbridge. So, and that overlaps all those genres, right? Because when you're downsizing, you're coming off maybe a big 15 or 2,000 square foot house, and you're downsizing into 1,000. Or when you're a starter house, yeah, you're looking and overlapping that genre, and then of student housing and revenue buyers now as well, because the rents are decent for landlords, especially if they have good equity and they're not paying high interest rates. So all the genres overlapping right now in the affordable ranges. So yeah, 200 to 300, very active. If you have a good house listed 300, you might get multiple offers. And last month I was at a house on the west side, about $300,000, and there was a lineup of agents and buyers on the street, about 5 to 7 groups of them, and they had
Wow.
5 offers on the house. So that's not in every price point, and certainly not typical in the $600,000 price point. But yeah, in that lower price point, 2 to 300, and even 3 to 350, still is pretty slim pickings.
So, that house on the west side with the multiple offers, what did it end up selling for?
It went for over full price, and my buyers went in. They had a unique condition, but they were over full price, and they weren't considered, or they went with the offer that was thousands over full price in that case.
So, Jeff, are there certain areas of the city that tend to be more popular for buyers right now?
Well, the west side has a bigger land base, so there's more sales over there now. I think there's more over on the west side than north and south combined right now for homes. So, uh, and out of town buyers, which we have more of right now. We have BC buyers that are taking advantage of the higher prices there, cashing in and then moving here and having some extra cash left over and getting a better property, or just downsizing and then setting aside money. We're seeing a lot more of that from Ontario and BC. And, they don't mind a little 2 minute drive across the river valley. So, the old school Lethbridge Southern people, you say, oh, I don't know why you'd buy way over there on the west side. But, that 2 minute drive for out of towners that have been commuting, half hour, an hour to work every day, that's nothing. So the west side is very popular, but south is strong, north is strong, and areas around Lethbridge right now, too. The rural communities have a lot of strong demand right now as well.
Let's talk a bit about that. Maybe people want even more bang for their buck. They're going to some of the
Mhm.
bedroom communities like Coaldale, Reimer, and Nobleford. I even have a few friends who moved to Tabor, and it wasn't just for
Yeah.
the corn.
Yeah. Corn's good right now. I had some last night. Boy, it was sweet and good. I love Tabor corn. Great reason to live in southern Alberta for sure.
Now, is a variable rate mortgage a good option in our current market, Jeff, or are people now leaning more towards the fixed mortgages? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to monthly costs, right? And when you're talking about these urban centers, for sure, Nobleford, Coaldale, Raymond, those areas are, almost hotter than Lethbridge in certain parts right now because of people trying to keep their costs down. And in the variable rate and fixed rate mortgages, I mean, it's a personal choice. You need to, talk with your family, talk with your professional, and talk about options. It depends where you're at financially and your tolerance for risk. Um, but right now, with uncertainty about them going up, I think more people are probably leaning to fixed. Um, I'm still floating a variable right now and kind of regretting it. I should have locked in a while ago. And you say, oh, I should have locked in then. So I might as well just, stay with my variable now. But, if they go up again, I'll be kicking myself saying I should have locked in when it's 2% or 3% or 4% or 5. And now it's up at 6. So I've been told by certain professionals, oh, don't worry, it's just temporary. It'll go up and then it'll come down. But economists have been wrong right now. So even with the inflation, they're just gonna. Sometimes people think they're just gonna keep raising them. So it's hard to know. So it's a very personal choice. You need to seek advice from friends, family, and certainly professionals.
It's interesting. Friends of mine who locked in on a 5-year close 3 years ago for 1.99. They still have 2 more years at 1.99.
I know. I got. Why didn't I lock in? I feel kind of stupid, but riding the variable, you think, oh, it's going to go up, and then, oh, what if there's recession? It'll come down. But right now, the rates are higher, and I sure wish I would have locked in.
Are we seeing more people getting longer amortization lengths in their mortgages? And how long of an amortization period can a person get these days? Can we go beyond 25 or 30 years like we see in the States?
Right now, I think we're at 25 for high ratio loans. So if you put down less than 20%, I think that's still at 25. And then if you're a conventional loan where you put down 20 or more percent, then 30 years amortization is an option. And that's the banks don't have flexibility beyond that. But will that happen in the future? Possibly, yeah. Will they, lengthen the amortizations to go 35 or 40 years again? Very possibly, with the rates going higher because they want to keep housing costs down somewhat while they try to stop inflation. And I think people within that 25-year or 30-year max are certainly probably pushing those limits more than ever with the higher interest rates to try to keep the monthly costs down for sure. I spoke with a mortgage broker today and she said, yeah, you're 25 and 30 there capped, can't change that. But more people that might not have, pushed that 25 or 30-year limit before are pushing those limits now because of the higher interest rates for sure.
Let's talk about first-time homebuyers once again, Jeff. And with the stress tests, are you noticing maybe a decline in younger people looking for homes?
I don't have hard, fast stats on that, but uh, I don't know if how much is really changing there because when they raise the stress, I mean, there has to be some of that because if people have to save up that little extra down payment, but 5% is still 5%, isn't too much different when house prices raise or the interest rates are a little higher. So your minimum down payment to save up doesn't change a lot. So people can still get in, but they're having to consider the lower price points because of the higher interest rates. And then with the supply being tighter in those lower price points, it's making them maybe hold off or check it out and decide to wait a little longer. But uh, myself, like I said, I don't have the hard facts and stats on that one. But my buyer pool still varied with young people and middle and old for sure.
And what a lot of people have to consider as well, it's not just the 5%. Let's say it's a $300,000 home, you need to come up with 15 grand, but then there's also the legal fees, there's the home inspection, which we talked about, the hookup fees. I mean, it all adds up after a while, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. You're probably going to want another 1.5% of your purchase price for costs for lawyers are pretty affordable though, and we need them. They're important. And the home inspection is very important. There might be a tax adjustment. So if the owner's prepaid to the city a certain amount, you're going to have to, the lawyers will prorate it to the day. So you're not getting, hurt by it, but you do have to come up with some money ahead of time. So you should, besides your 5%, yeah, you should have roughly maybe another 1.5% of your purchase price saved up for your extra costs.
So for the rest of this year and potentially into 2024, how is the real estate market looking here in southwestern Alberta, Jeff?
Yeah, well, right now with supply down, I would think that the prices should stay strong. Um, I think as winter comes, certain buyers may not choose to move here in winter, but we're still going to see that immigration from the larger centers to to southern Alberta. So I think it's going to be good. It's hard to judge with the interest rates. I mean, we haven't seen historical um, acceleration of the rates in my lifetimes. I don't think ever. So when the rates go up from like 1.89 up to 6%, right? You're looking at a huge uptick, and that's hard to judge how that's going to happen. But with the rates still like 6%, when I bought my first place, I locked in for 7 years. I was thrilled at 7.625. So, when I look back and then I hear other stories, people go, "Oh, I had something at 19 or 20," right? So, really, 6% is pretty affordable. So, I think the economy in southern Alberta is, yeah, it's got challenges, but we're still a great place to live. There's still jobs available, and the house prices affordably according to across the nation are still, quite affordable. Even for rents, we think they're high here, but other centers are even higher. So I think Lethbridge is going to be good and stable. It's a fairly balanced market. Right now in the lower price points, you're going to say it's more of a seller's market, but with I think right now, because there isn't a ton of supply, that prices are going to do okay. Maybe there'll be more selection come up as the interest rates take more of an effect. But how it goes shortly after that, it's hard to judge. We haven't experienced, and then changing economic factors. We'll see how it goes. But I love Lethbridge. I love Southern Alberta. I love Alberta, and it's a great country. So I think people want to move here, and people are moving here, and people are moving to Lethbridge. So I think it's going to be good and stable and remain fairly strong.
It's great to hear. Jeff Reimer is a Lethbridge realtor with Royal LePage. Jeff, thanks so much for your time today.
Hey, nice speaking with you, Hal. Thanks for the opportunity. Have a good day.
You too. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks for watching.